have helped probably well over 500 agents start their businesses and their LLCs, and I created my own. And I want to go through some things that nobody told me that I had to learn the hard way. Sometimes we learn as we go, and sometimes we get correction from people who love on us, right? So I am going to share my screen. Today, I want to talk about building your insurance agency. And even if you already have your LLC in place, even if it's already contracted, you might still pick up on some tips that I picked up on, especially when Zach came along and started helping me. So today we're going to talk about all the steps I think insurance agents should do to build their agency to protect it. And this conversation, I'm going fast, is had in almost every Facebook group I'm in. We had it, last week in the insurance ladies, and you're going to get a lot of opinions, and opinions are just that. But at the end of the day, you need to decide what is right for you and your business and your legacy. And I will tell you, what happens when you start your company may not be how it ends. I never knew. If you told me 5 years ago, Scott, that I would have Top Flight, I would have laughed, because that I didn't think that was my journey. I thought I was going to be a solo agent with her own book, and that was it. I never imagined to have the support and to mentor as many as I do. And I'm thankful for that. But you never know how your journey is going to change. And so when I give this advice, it's given as if I could have done it all over again, this is what I would have done. First of all, this information is not legal advice. It's not tax advice. It's designed to give you the information that you need to start your journey. It's called JoJo's Big Sister advice. If you want to contact an attorney that practices practices law in your state, you should do that, or the state insurance commissioner's office, to make sure that you're abiding by your local regulations and laws. Things that I might talk about in Georgia might be different than Washington, might be different than New York and California. I do know that because New York and California did give me a run for my money. Questions on Medicare compliance should be submitted to your FMO's compliance department. Know that when you're dealing with a compliance department, they'll never tell you how to do what you want or how to skirt regulations. It's usually a yes or no answer. These are some examples. Is Joanna's House of Medicare Plans a compliant business name? That's a good question for the insurance commissioner. So today's journey, I think that it's important to formalize your business into an entity, such as an LLC, which is what most insurance agents start off as. We understand that as entrepreneurs, our time is precious, and the decision to structure your business is a significant one. Today, I'm going to shed some light on the structure framework that I went along with. There's tax advantages, there's credibility advantages, there's liability protection, and some big decisions. Like I said, you can go 40 years as just Joanna Wyckoff under her social, but a lot of times, what you would have done, would you feel comfortable with an auto insurance person calling you and saying, I'm just Joanna, here's my, I'm not going to give them their social, think about what you would feel comfortable with. And then, so one of the very first things when I had to start Top Flight, which was a big surprise to me, I never knew that my previous partnership was going to go awry. But when I had to start Top Flight, I was under a crunch because of the relationship nature. And I sat in my friend's office thinking so long and hard about what I would call the company. Because once you found the name and everything, you go back and change it so easy, So it's important, kind of like picking out a baby name. And I know many of you guys are parents, right? But when you're picking out that baby name, you want that name to the baby, and make sure that the baby has a personality of a John or Maria, or make sure that baby is a Joanna, right? And you want to make sure that that name means something to you and defines the agency structure. So not saying that anybody did anything wrong, because I have agents who do both. Some agents use their personal names as part of their agency. I chose not to, because I am more than just Joanna Wyckoff. When I started Top Flight Insurance, I already had, come up, on my downline. And so I never wanted my agents to have to say, yeah, I'm with Joanna Wyckoff Insurance. I felt like that to be a little wonky, right? And so I already knew that I had to use something that was bigger than just Joanna, and I didn't want to be regional because before I used to use a DBA called Georgia Senior Solutions, and that was really regional. When I would call, Florida and Alabama and New York, they'd be like, "Oh, Georgia Senior Solutions. I'm in New York. You're calling from Georgia, huh?" And it just confuses people, right? Even though I had insurance licenses across the country, I really pigeonholed myself with that name, which I stopped using. But that's when you want to come up with a name. Like, I have one of my good agencies here, and he doesn't have any desire to go outside of Texas. And his great name is Texan Benefits. And I thought that was an amazing name because he's a face-to-face agent. He works just in Texas primarily, and he's not going to be calling, seniors in New York and New Hampshire and Washington. So that's a great name for him, right? And I should also define that you do insurance. When agents make up names like Wyckoff Financial Services, that gets a little confusing. Like, are you a financial advisor? Services? People don't really consider insurance financial services. So in most states that I am part of, insurance had to be in the name. You might have to get a name approval first. In Georgia, I did. California, you have to get a name approval, same as New York and Mississippi. But I thought that you would clearly want to define what we sell, right? Insurance. And then researching, when one of the mistakes I made, because I made this name sitting in my friend's office and I just had my cell phone to Google, I didn't research a whole lot. Like, I did a Google search, I searched Georgia. I did not search much beyond that. And I didn't do an in-depth search. I didn't to see if Top Flight Insurance .com was taken. That's my next slide. But I didn't do enough search. And there is another Top Flight Insurance. They have an ending in California, which caused me a little strife. But make sure you do enough research to make sure that nobody has your name. And you could just go to your state department of insurance to make sure in your that there is no name. Some states, like I said, have a name requirement, name approval process that you have to get approved from. The State Division of Corporation, you have to search them. I would make sure that there's nothing close. So I just said that my former DBA was Georgia Senior Solutions, right? Somebody went on to the Georgia Department of Secretary of State and purchased that name recently because I was going to use it for another side business. And they purchased it recently, and I have no idea what they're doing with it. And I was like, dang, those rascals, because I was about to use it again for a different business, like a complementary business, But you want to make sure that no one's using your name or something similar. And if somebody's used the name before, you want to see if there's any digital trace of it, because you will get affiliated with that. So if there was a Top Flight before that's now defunct and closed up shop, they had a bad reputation. I wouldn't want to assume that bad reputation, right? Think about businesses in your area. Sometimes people like, is that the one on Peachtree Street? No, it's a different one. Oh, so something similar. We had a famous person come into town recently and do restaurant reviews. And there's two restaurants with very similar names, Milk and Honey. And the Milk and Honey that he did not go to, that's a really good establishment, they got a lot of threats. They got a lot of backlash. And it wasn't them, but their name was so similar to the other company. You want to make sure distinction, One of the things that I like to use is whois.com when I'm looking for a name and seeing if it's available. If somebody already has Top Flight Insurance, .com, and that's the name I wanted to use, I'm gonna go see why somebody would buy a name that I use, right? Like, did somebody reserve my name using it as a DBA in another entity, right? I want to go find out who, what, and why. Is somebody, and that happened to us with Medicare Mentors a couple years ago. A lot of you might have known that I had to change the name. I never knew that Medicare Mentors was going to blow up into what it is today. And I went to create the LLC, and it was already created and it was already registered as a trademark as an agency. I wasn't going to use it to sell insurance, but they already made a trademark and everything. And they were actually using my fame and notability to create another Facebook group that was tricking some people to join theirs. Talk to a tax advisor. One of the things I see a lot of insurance agents saying is, oh, you should start off as an S Corp. Talk to a tax advisor. Most tax advisors want you to have a certain amount of income before they file that form. And so if you're starting off at ground zero, $0, your tax advisor might not want you to start off as an S Corp today. It might not be any financial beneficial. So talk to your tax advisor, because if you are starting brand new, you might not have that benefit. Especially, and then talk to them if it's gonna just be a solo person, a partnership, or a corporation, and get somebody who is going to help you along the way. Make sure you find someone that you love and trust. I would find somebody that you have access to on a semi-regular basis. Try to get them outside of the busy tax season when they have time to do tax strategies and planning. This is our next slide. Talk to them early. Talk to them when you're establishing your entity. One of the mistakes I made is nobody told me that there was a tax code where I could write off a vehicle if it weighed a certain amount of pounds. And I went and purchased 2 new vehicles one day. I had to because somebody crashed into my car and totaled it. So I had to buy a car, but I didn't know that I should be looking for a certain amount of weight. One of the vehicles, I got lucky and made the weight, right? But on the other vehicle, it's just a few 100 pounds shy of making that weight. And so I wasn't able to use that as a complete tax write-off that year for my other business that it represents. But had I talked to a tax professional about things that we do in the insurance industry, like buy vehicles and ride the heck out of them, driving to appointments and stuff, I would have been able to make a better tax choice when I went to purchase a vehicle. And that's just one of the scenarios where I say it's really, you need to talk to people and not rely on just people on TikTok, but you need to talk to somebody in that profession that actually specializes in insurance agents. Real estate agents are, I guess, somewhat semi-similar, where they do similar businesses like us. So if they don't have an insurance agent background, maybe a real estate agent background, but you want someone who understands the nuances of your business. Now, very many people understand that I operate in 45 different states and I have to buy insurance licenses in those states every 2 years. And I had to do this for this California state. And I had to go get a registered agent for Mississippi and Virginia and Idaho. And by the way, that was really expensive. Not many people understand that. They have worked with somebody like me, so they might not be looking for those tax advantages or deductions, right? By the way, I always suggest agents start off with really good tax software from the very beginning. You can just start off with $15 software, but keep track of those expenses as you incur them. Every time, when I was setting up my business, I was running my debit card and everything like nonstop. It was like, okay, I need this, this, and this, and Office Depot, and this, and that. It just seemed like stop it. Those expenses add up, and if you don't keep track of them, you're going to lose deductions. Back to my slideshow. Establish a business address. This is one of the things that a couple of my agents are now going back to do. And I made this very mistake. So I'm talking from experience. Everybody in the world now knows where I live. Thankfully, I have a very steep driveway, so not many people want to come knock on my door. But everybody has my address because nobody told me to use a virtual address when I established my entity. And so not only is I'm getting mail from everybody and their mom, but everybody knows where I live. It's public record in 45 states that I have an insurance license in. You could just put in Top Flight Insurance and my address comes up. It's a little creepy, right? So I would suggest to go to one of these websites, one postal, physical address, anytime mailbox, traveling mailbox. These are all good. If you just put in virtual mailbox on Google, most of them will come up, and you can, their prices are different. Some of them start as low as $8 a month to protect my address a little bit. If you go to the Department of Insurance, you'll find Joanna Wyckoff's insurance. You could change that too. I should have changed my entity, even my private one, to virtual mailbox. And when I move, that's the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to change it. Nobody's going to know where I live in Houston or Alabama, wherever I choose to move to, I'm going to use a virtual mailbox for everything because there's no statute of having to use your actual residence address that I know of in my state or Houston, Texas. I don't think there's anything. But if I could do it over again, I would use a virtual mailbox for both my personal insurance license and my business insurance license because we have some creepy people, especially nowadays where your name and NPM are coming up on AOR changes. Like if I changed my mom and somebody's trying to steal their back and they see my name and they're trying to report me, and we see this every day in Facebook groups of, hey, who knows this agent Joanna Wyckoff NPN, and they're pulling up insurance licenses. That's creepy, right? Insurance agents can get a little creepy. And so I highly suggest this, not just for your business, but to also change it for your personal too. And it'll just protect some people from showing up to your house. Or somebody a couple years ago in Facebook groups was getting really creepy and they were Googling my house to prove a point like that I wasn't a millionaire. I never said I was a millionaire. I was like, anyways, people are creepy. So I would use that. The first thing you do, you could go back and now and change your address later, but I would do it. Social proof. Somebody in my Facebook group said, I've been doing this for 40 years. I don't need to have an LLC. People know who I am. Times have changed. People want to make sure that they're working with an entity that is reputable, that's not fly by night, that's sticking around. So make sure you have not just, your business cards and stuff. Make sure that you have a Facebook business page. Make sure that you have a website presence. Now, I wouldn't do your website day one. It's not the immediate thing. If you haven't made a profit, that you can wait a couple months on that and do your website at 9 o'clock at night. My best advice is to do all this work after business hours. You don't need to be sitting here building websites at 10 o'clock in the morning when you need to go sell some insurance. This is things I do at 9 o'clock at night. Okay. But tag yourself at events, when you're out and about at carrier meetings and stuff like that. People want to know that you're real, you're legit, you're long-term, and that you're not just a fly-by-night agent. Especially when they're Googling you, especially if they met you from online or you called them and said, hi, this is Joanna Wyckoff. And they say, how do you spell your name? So when I worked for the government, I kept my last name different. I kept it as my married name because I got tired of spelling my last name. But have some social proof, more than a business card, and make sure people know that you're real. And going back to the Namecheap and a couple other things, there's places that you could do it all at once. Taylor Brands is a website I found, and I found it too late, where you could really you could really design your website, logo, business cards, and everything all in one sweep. So if I was to do it over again, I could come over here. They don't charge extra for an LLC that I know of. They help you just do everything in one spot. So if you're the type of person who gets overwhelmed with, oh my God, I have to do this, because it is overwhelming. A lot of steps, right? We have to do an LLC, EIN. Do I need a license? Trademark, taxes, booking, like they have it all in one spot. So this is one of the websites that I could recommend going to. This is one thing that I wish I did when I was brand new. I didn't even think about a digital business card until recently. And then I think some of you have seen my constant contact bracelet, where I have a bracelet where someone can scan my bracelet and it brings up my business card, which is nice because if I'm in the pool and you have your phone, you can scan it because I don't have my business cards on me, right? That happened to me at last year. I was in the pool. We were talking, somebody needed help with their Part B insurance in California, and somebody was telling them to talk to me, and I was like, I don't have my business card. Anyways, she had her phone though, so I went and got that bracelet. This is a great website, taylorbrands.com, and you can see all the things that they recommend. A logo. Creating my logo was a little bit wonky. I hired a couple of different artists to do it. When we were creating the Medicare Mentors a couple weeks ago, I was having a really hard time with the concept, and I think I created it on Namecheap, actually. I created it on one of those websites. I had the idea previously from one of my previous logos with Georgia Senior Solutions. So I just reinvented it with the stethoscope. But yeah, this is one of the websites because it kind of guides somebody so they don't get overwhelmed. Namecheap, back to Zach's very favorite site. I think this one does most of that too. Maker, business name generator. This he was talking about. All right, so this is what I was looking for earlier. So it'll help you create everything right here. Namecheap.com. All right, let's start off with something. Medicare. Oh, let's see what it comes up with. Okay, it's making oh, it's not putting okay, let's see what it does. Generate. It was separating words like New York and Air Force. So it comes up with. That's a lot. All right, let me go change that. I felt like this resembled my group really nice because often female business women, we feel like we have to wear capes, being super mom, super wife, super business person. So I felt like this emulated the group a lot. So I designed this on one of these websites. I want to say it was Namecheap. But yeah, so lots of tools here. When you're creating your business emails, I recommend having a minimum of 2 emails, if not 3. One of the problems that anybody who's been in business for a couple weeks or longer knows that the carriers will inundate us with emails. I probably get 100 emails overnight from carriers, and I have to go through them. And then my email was getting so full, it was at 99% capacity, mostly from insurance carriers telling me that there's an SCP or something like that, and they'll send it from 5 different states, like Blue Cross Blue Shield will send it for every state. Anyways, I wasn't deleting them well enough, and I actually had to hire my assistant. He spent his first couple weeks with me deleting my emails and archiving emails and stuff like that. But had I started from the very beginning, I would have had one for consumers, one for insurance carriers, and then one for things like Delta, Southwest, Office Depot. Like, I don't send that stuff to Joanna at Top Flight because those companies will start inundating you. And then before you know it, your email looks like 60,000 and you can't find real emails in between Bath and Body Works, right? So I don't like to send any of that. And so I would have like info at insurance company, contractor and carriers at insurance company, and then I would do help at. So there's different. So that's how I would structure if I was to do it over again. Then the next part, now we're ready to file the name of the company with the Secretary of State, your host state. There's some people out there saying that you could file a company with a different state than your resident state. I would also talk to an attorney and a CPA about that. Once you get your name approved and they approve your business license, then you take that and go apply for an EIN. And it's done in seconds. It's not anything you have to wait on. And then you take that EIN and you go open up a business bank account. And so I want to talk about business finances here because nobody also told me this when I got my insurance license in 2016. I started giving everybody my bank account for these carriers under my social, and then all of my stuff was intermixed into one bank account, and all my expenses were coming out of there, all my household expenses, everything was mixed, commingled, and it made it really, 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 really hard to differentiate what was a business expense and what was a personal expense. It took me so many hours to pry them apart, probably actually days actually. And it was a lot of stress. It created unnecessary work at tax time. I lost out on deductions because I didn't have it aligned correctly. Nobody told me, right? And that's because nobody gave me any good business advice when I started off in the insurance industry. It was, you don't need that. You can do that later. You're not making any money right now. But even as the money does start trickling in, you still have business expenses that you're paying. I went and bought an iPad Pro and I went and got that. That's a business expense that I actually think I did take in the long run, but it didn't come out of my business account. So very first piece of advice, if I could give anybody, even if you already have your LLC, don't commingle funds, especially if you have a spouse or a W-2 income from something else or different businesses. Like Top Flight Insurance and Medicare Mentors businesses are completely separate. I separate all my businesses. I own a CBD business. That is also separate. I don't commingle business funds with multiple businesses either. So if you have a babysitting business and insurance, separate them. They shouldn't be commingled. They have different expenses. That's the very first thing. I even use different banks because I want to make sure that I have the right debit card when I go to Publix. I'm not swiping Top Flight's debit card and not Joanna's, right? Apply for credit terms. You won't get it right off day one like TikTok makes you believe. But we're actually probably going to have a class on this later on down the road. But you can start applying for business terms to increase your credit worthiness and avoid using your personal credit. A lot of people say, well, what do I need to purchase personal credit for? If you are operating in more than one state, getting some insurance licenses was a little pricey for me. And one thing I found out later, and I'll show you guys later, is there's a way to have a net 30 on that. Another piece of advice, this is from Zach, is control, don't own. And this is what many multimillionaires will tell you later on the road. Your business allows you to control things that you don't own. The company can lease vehicles, rent properties, and provide experiences that are tax advantage. Control of those items comes with less tax exposure than personally owning them. This is very true. Talk to your tax professional. And then what we started doing was just when we went into our Wells Fargo or my Bank of America that has Top Flight, I started asking the local bankers how to get things like credit worthiness and maximize my ability. And they start giving you advice once they see that you are doing business with them. One of the things I want to show everybody while I have you guys is a bank called found.com. I found this last year. And I said, where were you my entire life? You can set it up free online. The only downside is they only allow you one account per phone number because I tried to set up all my different businesses with them and it doesn't know how to do that yet. But they will separate your money and they will separate the taxes and your expenses, kind of like a mini QuickBooks right in there for free. And so especially because a lot of insurance agents, we have to pay our taxes separately. A lot of people, especially our spouses, don't know that the money that just hit last week is not the money we get to spend because we still owe Uncle Sam, right? So it puts it in compartments so you don't forget to pay your taxes. And it also tracks like having a QuickBooks in your bank account. I really like it. I don't have to toggle between apps. I can send invoices. I don't send invoices for Top Flight, but for Medicare mentors, I could send speaking fees and stuff like that. So I do like that. So yeah, I recommend searching this out, seeing if it's something that you can use. I love it. I found it to be incredibly helpful, better than just my basic bank because I do love my bank. I had a hard time setting up. You see Mississippi, I owe them a document. So that's why it's under state review. But I can see all of my agent licenses and my agency licenses over here. And I could see the status and I can also print licenses here, which is great when you're applying for carriers that want a freaking PDF of the license. Like a couple of them out in California wanted me to go give them my California and Nevada license. I had to go dig up. So like I can print my license right here. They do services, so I can apply for a license. So let's say you can also download a PDB report. And this is important if something's wonky with your thing. I tell agents to go download a PDB report. You can look up your CE. I can come over here and look up a NPN for somebody, request a certificate. Anyways, going back here, let's say I need to go apply for a Hawaii license. Somebody just told me that they're going to work in Hawaii. So I have to go apply for my Hawaii license. So I need to go over here and first Joanna has to get the license in Hawaii and then Top Flight has to get the license in Hawaii. Always individual first. So I'm going to apply for non-resident and individual. Now, if this is the first time I'm doing it, if I need to apply for Georgia first, I would choose resident first and then individual first if you're brand new. If you have an individual already, then it's resident and then firm. So if I'm creating Top Flight for the very first time in Georgia or whatever insurance agency, I would come over here. And then you can type in the firm name, the EIN, and then I always put as the firm authorized submitter. And then almost every state allows you to apply online. Some states are a little wonky. New Mexico makes you mail in a paper check. They're jerks like that. I still owe them another paper check. Yeah, so and then like I said, some states like California, how you have to get a name approval for, and it'll be like right in here. Georgia, you have to submit a citizenship affidavit. They'll tell you what's wonky. They'll tell you right here. So I like to use Surcon because I can see everything, all the statuses all at once. So if you're starting for the very first time, and you could start that. If you need to go get other state insurance licenses, you can see it right here. And it also reminds you of when your expiration dates are coming. I'll show you if I have any expiration dates. I think I've approved mine for the next couple months. Let's see, overview. So I know that one thing I have to go do now is I have to go fix my Mississippi documents for my agency license. But you could, so many different things you could do here. And like I said, I don't think I pay anything for it if I do. And then they send you a bill and you pay it net 30. So I love the Surcon services, especially for people who have more than one license. I think it's really valuable. Great. So back to my thing. Nipper I also use. I don't like going back and forth between Nipper and Surcon because I'll forget if I already applied for an agency. I would like to just use one and be done with it. But Nipper, you can also use very similar services. I just identified more with Surcon and the flow of it. And then once you get your agency national producer number, then you can start contracting. And this is where if you're one of my agents, you would say, hi, Joanna, I got my agency license. Carrier contracting is really easy. It's on my same platform. If you're with a different entity, you would just contact it's usually the top of the hierarchy that helps with contracting. And some carriers you just submit an extra form for. United Healthcare and Humana, you assign your commissions, then you become what they call LOA to your own company. So like United Healthcare and Humana, I assign my Joanna's commissions to Top Flight. You can't get paid out separately. So this is another consideration if you have more than one person, one partner. Like if I had another partner at Top Flight and we both had to assign our commissions to the agency, then now we have to do accounting and figure out whose commissions whose. So things that you want to be aware of, because you do have to assign the principal agency person, you have to assign their commissions. Almost every carrier I can think of. Aetna, MAPD, for example, I had to redo my background check. They had to make sure I didn't kill anybody or anything like that. And that took a little bit of time for them to process. But you have to click through the entire thing, submit it. They redo your background check. Everything's good to go, and submit you an agency contract. One thing to know is, like, let's say you work as Joanna in multiple states. Everywhere that Joanna is appointed with that carrier has to also have an insurance agency license for that state too, unless you're going to stop working there. So like United Healthcare was probably the biggest one where I had to get an agency license for every state that I worked in and my downline worked in for United Healthcare, or I couldn't be the upline. So like if one of my downlines goes and wants to work in Alaska, now I have to go get an Alaska license, which is fine by me. But it's something to consider. So like some agents, I see the biggest mistake is they go and buy a bunch of different licenses because their mom is over here, their cousin's over here. If they don't have enough business in that state, it might not be a good business decision to have a business entity in that state for just one or two clients. Like Mississippi just literally cost me over $600 for my business agency to be in there because of their personal license fees, the business license fees, the registered agent license fees. And then I had to register as a foreign entity there too, which was like $250. So some states are very expensive to operate in. So you want to make sure it's business sound. Once again, talking to your tax professional about where you're going to operate and what the purpose of operating there is, not just, oh man, Michigan has a $10 license. Let me go pick that up. It's $10 for Joanna. It's not $10 for Joanna plus Top Flight plus You see where I'm going with this? So, it can be a little cumbersome, especially if you have to go get an agency license for every carrier to function in that state as well. So some people might say, you know what, I have Georgia plus Alabama plus Tennessee, but I don't have any clients there. So let me let those appointments go. You can always re-add appointments for carriers like Humana and WellCare, but you probably wouldn't want to have to go get agency licenses there first just to add those carriers, is what I'm saying. So those are some considerations. You could talk to your FMO. Most of them have really good contracting departments who will guide you through it. And like I said, you could just do a couple different contracts to start off with. You don't have to do all 50 at once. I start off with just my Medicare Advantage contracts, and I do my Med Sub contracts, and then I do my ACA contracts. So I didn't bite the bullet all at once because it is a little tedious at this point. But that's my best advice for today. And I am at time. So thank you guys for coming today. Let me stop sharing. Do I have any questions in the group chat? Let me see. Any questions? No questions? Does anybody want to ask a question now that I'm done running my mouth? All right. Well, thanks for coming today. Oh, E&O question. Yes, E&O, usually they want you to convert the E&O to your agency. All I did was call Hiscox and say, hi, I changed my entity from Joanna to Top Flight. Can you change my E&O? And they did that right there and sent me a new certificate within minutes. Awesome. Please email me your questions. Awesome. But yeah, E&O is next. After that would be your E&O, updating your E&O. Some carriers might be a little different, but Hiscox, I just called them. All right, guys, have a great day. See you next week.
That's a wrap. If this helped you close more deals, hit follow. New agent training drops every week only on Top Flight Insurance.